Hello.
Good day.
How's it going?
Good. How are
Is
you?
is it
That's fine.
you're tired?
Yeah.
How come?
Didn't sleep well, I guess. I'm tired this morning.
Me too. I had nightmares.
So,
I know, but they're really, really bad.
when are they ever really, really good?
Never good.
Just exceptionally bad.
Some are exceptionally bad. Like I literally was trying to think of funny things to get myself out of, but I could not. Kept going back. And then I feel bad.
It's feel bad.
I know. Extra bad though.
Exceptionally bad. Like
Exceptionally
exceptionally
bad.
bad. Nightmares.
Just because we had missed Mother's Day.
Hmm.
And so you planned to do Mother's Day the day before Father's Day. And so we had a big grand day. And Father's
And it
Day.
wasn't that I was doing it to compete with Father's Day or anything. I just gave the girls a deadline of I don't want Father's Day to come and go without us having celebrated Mother's Day. But between travel and all the other stuff, this was the first opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
Anyways, I just feel bad about that.
but again, you didn't decide that. I surprised you with it.
I know. But just how Father's Day has unfolded. Oh, well.
It's all good.
So today I thought there's actually a bunch. I think for a few, I will be basing it off this Pew research.
Okay.
Very interesting questions, very interesting answers. And so the one that I thought of today is how much parents are feeling judged for their parenting and how they parent their child. And there's different groups
Hmm.
of people, like so from their spouse to other people in the community. And so I thought it'd be interesting to go through that.
Yeah.
So I guess just from you, do you ever feel judged by anyone in your life
Yeah.
as a for your parenting?
Yeah.
Okay. Me?
Yeah. And our children. Basically, the people I live with, I feel are the harshest judges. Well, because I'm not on social media, right? Like, I'm not one of those people that puts out or craves that sort of validation or feedback,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm not all about posting pictures of how amazingly happy our family is because we're by a river and everybody's all over it. And then the second I don't live up to that ideal, I beat myself up over it. I
Right.
just don't live in that space. So, yeah, I'm sure people judge me 100%. I think my given athlete meter is real low on that topic, though,
Yeah.
right? Like, I just doesn't click with me.
So how much do you feel I judge you?
That's a tough question. How much do I feel you judge me that you express, or how much do I feel you judge me and you just carry it with you?
Both and sure.
Say we're a solid 65% judgment constantly. I don't know if it's judgment. Like, and that's it. Like, I don't know if it's judgment. You and I typically are pretty aligned. I wouldn't say we're as dedicated to the rules as we once were, right? Like our early stage parenting was much more formal and structured and adherence to different rules. Now we're just making it through the day, right? And it's different, right? Because the girls are going through a lot more different stuff that doesn't really need the same sort of parenting,
Mhm.
right? Like, and the parenting we give, they don't want to receive, right?
So I was gonna, okay, so I'm gonna assume the rules you mean is like meal times, sleep times, maybe
Yeah.
nap time.
All the stuff that we did as a structure when the girls were really, really young, up until, they're 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever, we're not as strict on that anymore because we let them kind of build their own routines. And there are certain things that are non-negotiable, right? Like we don't have TVs on the main floor. We don't really have other stuff going when it's dinner time, but our frequency of dinners is all over the place because we're all so busy, right? So that's not as adhered to.
It's been relatively better lately,
Yeah,
but yeah.
lately, well, since sports ended,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Once sports wrapped up, we got way more time in the evenings. Um, so that helps. But yeah, like nap times, we were super rigid with nap times, right? Like all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't know that I feel judged about how I parent. I feel I have to parent more because there's three of you would be probably a better. And it really comes down to when you guys decide you're gonna just dig your heels on something, that's when I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna back out of this conversation.
Like,
Hey, we shouldn't do that thing. And all three of you are like, what are you talking? And it's that's the only time that I'm like, I'm just gonna go act like I'm sweeping something and go to a different room.
so you don't think that we're actively judging you in terms of you're you're a terrible father, you shouldn't be saying that, terrible doing that.
No, I mean, if there is a misstep or the girls feel something, they're pretty quick to say they don't like it, and then I can either correct it or tell them tough, right? Like depending on the situation. So yeah, I don't really feel that much.
Yeah, I think Willow, I don't know if Maya would, or but maybe she doesn't feel it. But I do think Willow will say, and for both of us, if she didn't feel heard or
Mhm.
we responded poorly, she's pretty good at telling us.
Maya will tell me usually outside of the moment if she thinks I'm being mean. She's like, "You're being mean to me." Oh, I'm just responding in kind usually. So that's the only real feedback.
I only remember twice actively judging you. And first, what can you remember the first? Do you know what the first is? You putting on diapers on my our very first, like your
Mhm.
first diapering experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the key word in that is first.
Yeah. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
So looking back, it's funny. But I know now that it wasn't just you. It was her violent poops
Yeah.
that just like just it didn't matter how you put diapers on, they just never stayed in the diaper.
Yeah.
So it didn't
Your
matter.
only your only hope to contain it when she was that age was a hazmat suit around her that was fully sealed.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the only way.
And the only other thing I think was the screaming. You didn't handle screaming well when they were little.
No, I still don't handle screaming well.
Do people scream?
I don't I don't like it when there's a lot going on,
Mm,
right? Like if you're having an animated discussion with one of the girls and the dogs are barking and Maya's telling us all to calm down. I gotta leave.
mm,
Like I just can't handle that.
yeah.
But that's anything. That's the same effect as going to a crammed Costco and expecting you not to want to kill someone, right? Like it has the same effect. And that's just my upbringing. I don't deal well with that screaming stuff. That's why I don't do it myself.
Do you judge me?
No, not about parenting.
You
I'm
judge
kidding.
me.
I don't know. I don't know if I do. Like I don't. The tough part about this is I don't keep a like I'm not built to hold on to those sort of things. So
Mm,
even if I do in the moment, it's not like I've got it filed away in some mental diary for later, right?
mm,
I'm sure I have, but is it enough that I carry it? No, probably not. Which tells me it wasn't really a big deal.
yeah. Well, according to this research, half of the parents feel that their spouse only half the population who's like of the survey, half of them believed that their spouse judged them for how they parent their children. And I do find so the other half, so if we split the other half up, so like just under a quarter thought very often their spouse judged them, and then the other just over a quarter felt sometimes they were judged. I find most of the time in the families that I work with, it's usually the judgment is usually because one parent thinks that we need to be harder on the
Yeah,
kids, we need to have firmer boundaries and follow through. Uh, um, and then the other parent thinks that we need to be softer
yeah,
and right. So it's kind of finding that balance. I think they're both parents are right. It's just finding that balance. That's usually the biggest thing. Um, I think screens are another one that there's a lot of fighting. Like one parent might be a little bit more flexible with screens versus another.
yeah.
So sometimes it's a specific topic like that, or sometimes it's generally. But I was surprised that only half feel that their spouse.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah. Their children's other parent. So those are people who are remarried, maybe, for example, um, or aren't listening, like aren't living with their spouse. Um, the numbers go up a little bit higher for that.
that they feel judged.
They feel more judged, yeah, once they're separated and not living together anymore.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
There's a reason you're separated,
yeah,
which was you were in the 90 percentile, 91st percentile, you split. So yeah, of course you still feel like it.
yeah, yeah. Their own parents, how much do you feel about your own parents?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I know that. I know back when we first were young that mom and dad had opinions about how we were raising the girls. And a couple times it came to a pretty heated discussion. But in the end, I told them they could kick rocks if they didn't like it. Right. Like, and I wasn't trying to be rude, nor were they. Right. They just had opinions on what it was. And after a while, it kind of just got to a point where I was tired of hearing it. And they, for the most part, they've come around, or they did come around, right? Like it wasn't that they were so opposed, and it was all little things, right? Like it was about the televisions, or mainly it was about food, right? Like the treats and stuff. That was the hardest one for them to break. And there was just, I think there was judgment from both sets of parents, right? Because I remember
Well,
not,
that's the next one is your in-laws.
oh yeah, I'm sure, 100%. Knowing the in-laws, well, no, that's not fair. I think realistically, they're they're both going to judge because it's a reflection on what they think they've raised, right? Like
Hmm.
it's them looking at how we're raising the kids as a reflection of you and me and what they ultimately taught us.
Right.
Simple as that. So yeah, I would say I don't, and again, I'm not seeing judgment as a negative in this sense because there's never been any overt you need to do this or you need to do that. But absolutely people are going to judge and grade based on their own kind of set of guidelines, right?
Right. Well, according to the research, it was pretty even that people felt that their own parents judged them just as much as their
Yeah.
in-laws. So about half people felt um, judged at least some of the time by their or their spouse's parents, but 50% of them rarely felt judged. For my own parents, I can't really remember too much. I know there was a couple of things, yeah, probably early on that I might have butted heads with my mom. With my dad, for him, it was the risk stuff.
Yeah.
He was very like, "Oh my gosh, you got to be careful. You can't, they're swinging too high.
Yeah.
You can't let them go by, like so for my dad, I think it was just but for him, I remember once he's like, "Not on my watch. Like you do you, but not on my watch."
Yeah.
Um but yeah, and the stuff that you mentioned, I think, was a big one to the point that other family members were calling us, like around the treats, for example.
Yeah.
That was a big kind of headbutting
Hmm.
moment.
Big one, right? Because
Although I think there was a lot of little things. Like, no, there was judgment around how I was teaching Maya to communicate, like with the sign language. I know there were comments around that. There was comments, yeah, around how we were feeding them, playing with them. Yeah, I think there's a lot.
I think to a certain degree, though, it's a lot easier to see that evaporate over the years when they realize the effect of that, right? Like it's super easy to rationalize. Oh, it's just a donut, right? Yeah, sure, absolutely, it is just a donut in singularity. My parents would do that all the time, right? Go to Tim's, whatever. But it's like you're doing it every time, right? You're doing it every time. And I know one thing that we got into about was the toys, the stuffies.
Every time
Every
they
time they'd show up, it would show up with stuff.
and they showed up every day.
Yeah, and I finally said, you have to stop. Like, I'm throwing these out as quickly as you're bringing them in the house. Well, why would you do that? I'm like, because I don't have a room big enough, right? And frankly, the big conversation was around the fact that it was Maya primarily because Pickle was little, but it was like, it was essentially, you're teaching the kids to have zero appreciation for things because there's no special anything associated to these things. It's an expectation now, right? So when you do try and give them something special, what's the difference between that and the $10 thing you bought at the gas station? Like it doesn't matter. And frankly, it doesn't serve them any purpose, right? And books was another one. Books Books is a
I
bit more
was a little
forgivable.
bit easier with the books. Yeah.
Yeah, that one is a little bit more forgivable, but at the same time, you can't get our kids in a library,
Yeah.
right? They're book snobs because they want a book, they go buy a book, or they get grandma to buy a book or whatever. So there's things that way. I don't know, but for me, the realization was, in talking to my parents, that's how they like dad especially. That's how they showed love, right? That's how his dad, who was incredibly cut off, anytime he showed any sort of affection, that was it, right? It was through an act of getting something for them. And so I think dad and mom both inherited that a little bit and mom's even said, what's the point in taking it with me? If I can't spend it and see how happy it makes my kid, my family, and my grandkids, why do I have any of this? I'm like, yeah, that's great. It's a sentiment, but she's come around more to the teach them and they'll have it forever ideal, right? But that was a conversation we had to have too, right? The girls both sew now because of mom and both enjoy that sort of stuff because of mom. And that to me is more important than the fact that she bought them a million books.
Well, and that was the shift we made, right? If you're going to buy them something, make it something that you can do together, like
Yeah.
a craft, like
Yeah.
sewing. Like, I mean, can go to extreme. We had like a whole 12 shelf bookshelf of like knitting material
Hmm.
that we did end up having to get rid of
Yeah.
because
Because
there was
they
just
just
so
didn't use
much.
it.
But I think that
No, go ahead.
no, you go.
You'll forget.
No, I'll remember.
Okay. All I was going to say is that it comes down to they did have a bit of a renaissance because they went away from it for a while. And you're right. We had to get rid of it because there's so much, but they've gravitated back to it to the point where over the past few months, they've both made a point of reaching out to my mom to go over and do that stuff. So that to me is exactly the right outcome,
Yeah.
right? And it validates the fact that, yeah, that was the right way to do it.
And I think that goes, I mean, this is kind of changing topics a little bit, but we'll get to the other people here in a minute, like who are judging more. Um, but it's setting that boundary.
Mm.
And I think like with our spouses, it's giving that rationale and talking and collaborating versus fighting, saying you're wrong, you're doing it wrong. I think that there's an important piece there. And same thing with the in-laws and the parents, the
Yeah.
grandparents, right? It's having those conversations, ideally proactively, as you're having children, right? Sitting down and saying, this is what we are doing. These are our non-negotiables as we bring a child into the world,
Yeah.
right? These are the boundaries we want to set. Even things like holding the babies,
Hmm.
like that while they sleep, or, there's all sorts of things, little things like that that you don't think about. And nor are you going to be able to think of everything
Totally.
beforehand. So when something comes up, I would just say, just don't do it in front of the kids and don't pit each other against each other. Ooh, your parents are going to be mad. That drove me
Yeah.
nuts. Your parents are going to be mad because we are crossing. And that was really upsetting because they know what that boundary is,
Yeah.
right? So they're crossing that line. But if you have those open, collaborative conversations, um, not in front of the children, not when you're emotionally heated, whether it's with your spouse or with your in-laws or whomever. I think that's really important. But you got to know what those boundaries are. And you
Yeah.
might not know what they are until you see them maybe being violated,
Yeah.
but it's really being able to sit down and hear each other's perspective as well. But at the end of the day, I mean, when it comes to the grandparents, you're the parents at the end of the day. I think that you do have that final say. Certainly, we can hear their wisdom and their
Hmm.
input, but kind of finding that fine line. And then with your spouse, it's really important to feel heard. I
Yeah.
mean, to really take in each other's perspectives and understand where you're coming from and what your fears are,
Yeah.
and how do we balance the good part of what you're saying versus maybe the overprotective part or the over directive part
Yeah.
or the over punishing part, right? So it's kind of finding that balance together, but it's keeping it open.
Yeah.
It's not a one conversation. It's saying, okay, maybe let's try this. One activity I often give parents is try to be the other, act as though you're the other parent for a week, right? So if you're the more permissive parent, try to be firmer
Yeah.
and more boundaries and more no's. Whereas if you're the stricter parent, trying to be the more validating and easygoing and permissive sort of parent, and somewhere you'll probably find that balance a little bit more, I
Yeah.
think. So it would be interesting to go through those exercises together. I don't know if you have anything
Nope.
else to add to those. So the rest, so it was about half, really, at the end of
Hmm.
the day, half people didn't feel judged, half did
Yeah.
by spouses, parents, in-laws. Where they really were feeling judged was other parents in their community, their friends, and primarily the people that they're interacting with on online groups. Which begs the question, why are we on these groups? I was invited to be in parent groups online, like in Facebook, for example, as the expert, just to like throw in ideas
Yeah.
or to give some, tips and stuff. I had to leave. It was so vicious. They were vicious at each other. They're vicious at their children, the way they talk about their children online. And I mean, you and I have talked about this emotion contagion and the social comparison. I mean, you already talked
Mhm.
about that a little bit today. All of these things just make us so miserable, and yet we keep going back to these places. So I think there's a couple pieces there. One is just, why are we putting ourselves in those situations? But it's interesting that we feel so much more judged, and I think it influences how we parent. I don't know if you have any thoughts on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I think, yeah, the online piece, the only thing I have to say is just stop. Like, just stop. There is no reason in the world for you to be on social media to the degree that you are, and you can rationalize it however you want. Oh, I'm only on there a little bit, or I'm only on there so I can see other relatives, or it doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter. What it does matter is when you're on there, it shades your perspective and your perception of what is going on around you, and you typically draw the wrong conclusions. Because what you're seeing when you're online and you're looking at how other people parent, you're doing so because you want to validate how you do it, or you already think you're doing it in a way that you don't like or other people won't like. So either way, that's the story you're gonna get back. Like, oh my God, these people, they have so much fun. They're doing all these things. Yeah, but that dude could go home and beat the crap out of his kids, and we don't see that. Like, that's an
Yeah, we're
absolute
seeing
harsh. We're
curated
seeing
life.
we're seeing what people want us to see, and a lot of times we're seeing what people really want their lives to be, and they are not. So why be there?
Yeah.
And as much as people will rationalize the connection that can come through online groups, I have never been part of an online group that didn't eventually, either very quickly or eventually after over time, devolve into isolated, hateful takes on things. It's just the way it is because people don't feel any repercussion, right? And they feel that there's an ability for them to be free and really speak their mind. But what that does is it creates this black and white perspective on things where if someone isn't validating what they're telling you, they feel completely emboldened to be an awful person in return. Any type of group. You want to see some of the most horrific people in the world, join a community group on Facebook and just poke around. I guarantee whoever's listening to this, if you're a part of your community's Facebook, doesn't matter where you live, guaranteed half the time you're reading stuff that is horrific. It's people ratting other people out, it's people creating drama where there isn't, it's just people being mean. Why do that? Right? If you really want to do something, get out there and meet people face to face, right? Get out there and interact with people face to face. It doesn't mean you're not going to be judged, but it's going to be in a way that's much healthier and easier for you to manage. I would say personally, the hardest to deal with is outside of social media is likely your friend group, right? Because your friends are going to come to the table, and we've seen it a lot of times where friends are judging us, not in a negative way, but they're judging how they parent versus how we parent. That's just bad.
Yeah.
Like we don't advocate the way we like this whole podcast is an exercise in us just sharing kind of our experiences, and you can take it or leave it. We're not telling you our way of doing things is the only way. I am woefully underqualified to give any advice of any sort, but people have said it to our face, right, over time, where they feel that we do something so much better. It's like, yeah, but there's things that we don't do very good at all, right? And again, you're taking a sample size of how this happens. So yeah, I think judgment is all over the place. The only way to try and mitigate it or make it into a positive is just be face to face and open about it. But
Mm.
friends, I would say, is the toughest,
Yeah.
right? Because they're gonna they're gonna always kind of compare.
We'll come back to the friend piece in a second, but yeah, I think there is just that negativity and groupthink, and people go onto these forums hoping for advice, but it's usually not great advice. And where is it embedded? Like people are hearing what their own point of view who knows, like it comes from pop culture, or it comes from like there's so much going on out there that goes against what we know is important for child development. And that's why we've got these kids in this mental health crisis that we do,
Mhm.
right? Like,
And don't forget the fact that a lot of what's online right now is not real people.
yeah, that's true too.
Like
Actually, sorry,
I
go.
was just going to say, it comes down to what you're seeing online is presented to you for a purpose. And it is not a natural bootstrap ground up organic experience anymore. It is people with an agenda trying to have some effect. So you need to remember that.
And actually on that point, oh, see, I had 3 points and I only remembered the one. Shoot, see, I do forget. But on that point, my one of my students just posted in a couple of parent groups. It's closed parent groups. It wasn't open. So these are closed, invite only parent groups, looking at resilience, anxiety, emotional well being. She got over 400 emails in 2 days. And it was all, and it sounded like real people, but it was all AI generated,
Mhm.
every single one. It was unbelievable.
And if you don't believe it, there are things out there because I've been a friend of mine turned me on to something from an AI perspective that's very fascinating. But it is to the point where AI can have an actual conversation with you and sound like a real person and respond specifically to what you're saying. So the days of canned responses that may or may not fit are gone. They are smart enough and the programs and the workflows are smart enough that if the phone rings and you pick it up and you say hello, you're not entirely sure if it's a real person on the other end of the phone. And you have to think of that. And the only way to combat that is sticks and stones, man. You got to get off the internet, you got to get out into the world, and you got to just slow down. And I think Calgary is an interesting subset. There's a stark contrast between the haves and the have-nots in Calgary. There's very few that I would consider to be middle class. I would consider there to be people that are well off or living well beyond their means, or people that just don't, right? And there's this natural combative component to it where people are trying to keep up. Like the amount of Lamborghini sport utilities I see if I run to the store is mind-boggling to me, right? And these are people that some of them absolutely have that money, some of them don't. But the thing that ties them together is they are both trying to appear to be something, and then everybody else tries to follow along. And it just doesn't make sense. Like, get out there and just stop. I'm not talking about going to the extremes of being off grid or anything, but just like I recently put a block on my phone where I can't access anything that isn't email or I think my calendar between the hours of 7 and 6 p.m. or 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. I just can't. And not because I was overreaching, but because I just didn't want it as a distraction. And the more I go on, like if I didn't, we've talked about this before, if I didn't need the phone for work, I probably would have a dumb phone, right? And just get off it altogether because it's serving no real purpose anymore. It's been manipulated so much. So
Even having it turned off, but on your desk where you're working still is enough to be distracted by it. So it's good just to not even have it accessible at all.
yeah.
Another thing that we need to remember is usually where we're being judged the most is where other people are most self-conscious for their own selves,
Yeah.
right? That's usually where they become the judgiest. The friends is interesting. I remember actually going to a friend's birthday party, their dinner, and there's a bunch of moms, and they're like, "Well, how do you punish your kids?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't punish my kids. It's just not what I do." And I just remember, like, that was a turning point where it was like, and just even being, I don't know, like they never said, "Oh, you're the perfect mom," but just in there, like, what? What do you mean? And just they weren't even listening to what I had to say because I was talking about natural consequences,
Yeah.
certainly,
Yeah.
right? But I don't have to actively punish my children. It doesn't work anyways. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting that way. But I know I was definitely judged, and I would say an outcast in pretty much all mother related, like face to face stuff.
Mhm.
I've never been part of an online group or community, but certainly that's a piece. Now, the thing that really concerns me is I do a lot of parent education sessions and workshops and things like that. They do bring up the fear of other people judging them, even strangers, while they're out in the community. Like if they let their kid just go to the store by themselves, other people are going to judge me. And I even remember once, I don't know if I've shared this story, but I started, like in the 90s working with autistic kids. And there was one little girl that I worked with who was nonverbal, who looked very similar to me. And everyone assumed that she was my daughter. And I remember being like, we would practice waiting in line patiently in emotion regulation, just patience. And so I would go wherever I could see a line, we would go and we would wait. And she would drop to the floor and scream the first few times. And people were judgy and mean. And what are you going to do? And you need to pick her up and you need to do this and you need to. So I experienced firsthand. It was easy for me because I'm like, it's not my kid,
Yeah.
right? So it was easy to kind of step back. But you need to think at the end of the day, right? What's more important? What other people are thinking of you, even though you might never see them again, or what your child needs in this moment. There's a great story. I can't remember if it was Gordon Neufield's. It was some psychologist shared a story. I just can't remember who, but it was his daughter's like fourth or fifth birthday party. I don't know if I've shared this on
I
the
don't know.
podcast before, but daughter's fourth or fifth birthday party. And so he had all his friends there, right? And like all the other parents were there. And his daughter was opening up all the presents. And so there was one or two particular presents that the kids got really excited about, and all of the girls wanted to play with it. But his daughter grabbed it and no, ran away, right? And so now he felt the pressure of all of his friends and family watching him because he's this guru child psychologist. How are you going to handle the situation?
Hmm.
So in his mind's like, oh, I got to show them that my children know how to share and I've got to teach her a lesson to go and share. And so he went and he started telling her, right, the importance of sharing and we need to, and she's just crying and crying. And he had the realization she just opened it.
Hmm.
She's not even taken it out of the package. Like she opened the wrapping paper, but not opened the package. She hasn't even, like, I'm going to cry. She hasn't even had a chance to play with this thing yet. And
Yep.
now
He has to give it away.
and yeah, and at that moment he's like, who needs the lesson right now? And he's like, I need to be with my daughter and address her emotional needs, not everybody else's curiosity or whatever is going on for them. It's about her emotional needs. And these children also need to wait
Hmm.
because it's not theirs,
Yeah.
right? So they need to wait their turn. So that's a good, so he really like was able to take a step back and he's like, so he ended up turning, he stopped and he's like, you know what, kiddo, you haven't even had a chance to hold this doll out of the wrapping or whatever it
Yeah.
was. Rest of you kiddos, we got to find something else to do. We need to give her a turn first because it is her present, right? And then let's go. And so he kind of flipped it. So that's what we need to do is step back. Who needs the greatest learning and our kids are a priority. So how do we put their needs and what the real needs are? It's not always making them feel better.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it is. They need to sit in the crying and in the futility of the situation. But in that instance, right, like when I was waiting in line, I couldn't care about what everybody else because I was never going to teach this little girl how to regulate her emotions, how to build tolerance, how to wait in a line.
Hmm.
Because if I was always worried about everybody thinking, right? And then parents' worlds get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's what we see with anxiety, right? It's just too much fuss. We're not going to go out to eat. Or it's too much fuss. I'll just go do all my errands later on when they're sleeping,
Yeah.
right? And so they're never learning these skills. So I don't know. I think that that's a big piece. It's just thinking about why are we putting ourselves in these situations? And then if we are in that situation, your kids and their needs and what skills they need in that moment are going to be more important.
Well, and what does this situation serve, right? Like one of the ones that we encountered a lot very early on in life was hugs,
Yeah,
right? Come give me a hug. And we eventually had to say, no, she doesn't have to, right? She'll give you a hug if she
absolutely.
wants to, right? And that wasn't just like relatives, that was everybody. Like, and so as a parent or as an adult in that situation, you got to stop and think for a second about what is the situation's, what's its purpose, right? Like the birthday example is a great one because it's like, yeah, you're all coming together to celebrate this one child. But then you, as the rest of the parent group, are wondering why this child isn't openly serving your kid. And it's like, well, why did you go then? Right? Like if you went there solely because it was about your kid, you're going for the wrong reason, right?
Mhm.
So as an adult, what can your kid learn in this? Yeah, absolutely. Patience, right? Gratitude for being invited, selflessness, right? Like you're just happy to see how happy that person is. And some kids naturally have that. Some kids need to be taught it. But that's what you should be looking at situations like that. And then from the flip side, yeah, if your kid is one of those selfless kids that gets joy in sharing, then absolutely they're going to do it naturally anyways. But if they don't and they want to experience what it is that they've been given, let them do that. And as the parent, you need to a lot of people think that putting their kid first means at the expense of everything else. Actually, most adults think that to move ahead requires it to be at the expense of someone else. That's just the way society works these days, and that's not accurate. You can get as far ahead or further by simply looking at the situation and figuring out what the lesson or the purpose could be. Right. And sometimes that means that, yeah, putting your kid first means teaching them how to be patient or teaching them to wait or teaching them to shut up or teaching like
Mhm.
that puts your kid first
Absolutely.
on a longer term view that a lot of parents aren't great with. And a lot of that comes from the fact that there is a constant need for validation. There's a constant need for gratification and it's fed over and over and over and over again. And yes, you need to advocate for your kid. Yes, you need to make sure that your kid has a safe space. Sometimes, though, that safe space doesn't mean calm waters. They need to be able to experience it and know that you're there to support them, but they got to figure it out themselves, and you've got to let them figure it out. You've said this a million times, but just stop and think,
Yeah.
right? And really, you got to be okay with judgment. Like you got to accept the fact that judgment doesn't mean anything. Judgment, it's like saying you're offended by something. Sweet. Well, you need to change how you're behaving. No, I don't. You being offended has no effect on what I'm doing, right? If I'm doing something that violates a law or a societal whatever, sure, I need to then correct it. But me saying something that offends you, that's your emotional regulation. It has nothing to do with me, right?
Mhm.
It's no different than saying I need to do this because I feel judged. That's not a thing. That doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Let people judge you, right? Because in 30 seconds, they're going to go off and judge something else because
Yeah.
that's what they're built to do. So who cares? Move on. And if it's someone you consider close to you or it's a family member and that's their default state, maybe you need to think about how much you want them in your life, right? Or the role that they play in your life, maybe.
Or just understanding, oh, yeah, there goes their judginess again,
Yeah,
right? Like
cool.
it's just being able that radical sort of acceptance and being able to step back.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, like sometimes I think parents use it as an excuse. I'm not comfortable sending my kid to the grocery store,
So you need to not do it.
and so I'm just going to use that as an excuse,
Totally.
right? That I'm going to be judged. Either way, I mean, it's not going to help your kid at the end of the day. And sometimes you're right. Like it's not, I mean, my example with my the autistic girl, it was skill building. I
Hmm.
was literally working on a skill building. It's not that I was being so permissive and like, oh, who's the like some of those spoiled kids on Willy Wonka,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
right? Like they were just being brats,
Yeah.
right?
Lucas Salt's the worst.
Yeah, so I'm not talking about that, just giving them whatever they want. In that situation, it's like, no, you need to show respect, you need to show manners, right? And so now I'm using what is the skill in that situation, right? So my situation, she's autistic, she didn't know we were working on emotion regulation. That's very different. So yes, she might be upsetting the people around her because she's loud and screaming, very different from that other kid,
Hmm.
right? Where no, you are learning how to talk respectfully and to function like a nice human being in the world,
Yeah.
right? And so it might look very different depending on what it is that kid needs. But
Well, and the other thing as well is, and this is a general statement, a broad statement against a general part of the population is people need to stop thinking that they can't be inconvenienced,
mm,
right? And there's a difference between inconvenienced and absolute. I don't even know what the word would be, but inconvenience happens. So learn how to grade the inconvenience. Is a kid in a coffee shop, which let's be honest, most coffee shops these days have music as loud as a nightclub. So it's
yeah,
not like you're going to have a conversation anyways. But if a kid is freaking out and it is obvious that something is occurring, A, maybe order a side of mind your business with your coffee and just move on with your day. And B, grade it. Take a step back and really think before you make a decision, what's going on here, right? If it's a parent that's absolutely at their wits' end and they don't know what's happening, is there an opportunity for you to help them, right? Are you helping them by A, judging them, and especially to those people that feel the need to say anything, what is that helping with? Like, what do you honestly think is going to happen if you come up and say this child's behaving badly? It's not a surprise, right? So as the adult, read the room, right? And be okay with judgment, like the whole topic that we're talking about, but more importantly, realize that inconvenience happens and it typically isn't going to ruin your day. Not everything, you are not promised a perfect day. You are not promised nothing going wrong or annoying you. And frankly, the only way that you can get even close to that is just accept the fact that stuff happens and move through it. And it's not possible all the time. You get stressed, you get tired, you get whatever. But if you notice a trend where you're typically complaining about the same sort of thing over and over again, it's not the thing's problem. It's your problem,
Yeah.
right? And that judgment typically is an outcome of that situation. So take a step back for a second and think, what's really going on here? Right. And come from it from that perspective. And I guarantee if people started practicing that more and more, I'm a judgmental person. I am. But it really, really judgmental if I'm sitting people watching because I find it fascinating. But it's more a hobby than a state of mind. There are people that leave the house as if the world is out to get them, and it's their right to push back and be rude and have, like, I've had people say stuff to me in the run of a day where it's none of your business, right? We didn't need to have this interaction. I say it all the time in traffic. I didn't leave the house wanting to meet people, right? In traffic, do your thing, get around me. And yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the judgment typically is your own thing. And if you feel like you're being judged, that's your thing too.
Yeah.
Both are as ineffective and really as inconsequential as you make them out to be.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
You are good. And it is amazing when you are able to take a step back and like just think, from the other perspective. Because I just remember recently I was on a flight. I can't remember. I think it was from Ottawa to Halifax. I think I was stressed because Willow was already in Halifax
Yeah.
at the airport. And she was already going to be waiting at least 3 hours.
Yeah.
I think it was that flight. I can't quite remember. But either way, my flight was delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. And I found out it was a family because there was a kid who was sick.
Yeah.
And they were trying to figure out, do we let them on? Do we not let them on? So we waited on the tarmac forever. They let them on. The kid started puking. And so I'm like stressing because I like my poor kid is by herself at this other airport
Yeah.
in Halifax. And I had texted you and your only response was poor kid.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just like, it was such a switch for me. And I'm like, you know what? Willow's going to be fine, and like, yeah, poor kid, poor family. But then I was angry. So not because of this,
Yeah.
not because of this. They did kick the family off. Then I was angry because I had another flight. I can't remember where, but it was shortly after that. And there was a woman right next to me puking the whole way, puking onto the plane, puking during the flight. We all had to give our puke bags.
Yeah.
It was terrible. So I was angry then because
Yeah.
I'm like, if you kick that poor kid off
Yeah.
with the family, why aren't you kicking her off? Because she is way sicker than that kid was.
And that is 100% an okay response, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, we've been that family, right? We've been that family where it's not going well. It's a tough trip. We're not trying to mess anybody's day up, but that sucks, man. We've traveled like that.
Yeah, I was going to say on the flip side, that day, or like when we were in Washington,
Mhm.
we got Norwalk. Like I would have just wanted to get home, but I also don't think I would have been able to. If I was still actively vomiting, I don't think I would have been able to.
We would have changed the flight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have changed the flight,
But-
or we would have abandoned you. One of the two.
But yeah, but then if we take that perspective, like, yeah, well, yeah, you would just want to get home and just get it over with, right?
Totally.
So,
And that's the thing, right? Like, and it's not to say that that gives people a free pass on everything. Like, yeah, there are things that family could have done, but at the same time, I don't know if they showed up and the kid said that they had a headache and then it just ripped
knows?
past them. Who knows? Maybe they've been delayed 4 hours and in that time that kid got really sick and there's nothing you can do because you got nowhere to go, right? Like, there's just it's tough because a lot of times when I have a tough time not reacting is when I feel someone is being selfish.
Yeah.
Or deliberately cruel because for their own gain. That's when I really struggle with it and I get pissed off. And you see it the most in traffic,
Yeah.
right? You see it the most in traffic. But but I see it all the time everywhere else. It's like, really, and I have to remind myself as well. When I'm stressed or I'm running behind or whatever, absolutely, it's super hard to hold that. But I do try and come back to, doesn't really matter. Like, is the 5 minutes really going to change my day? Probably not. And that's more and more I'm trying to find myself in that situation where it's like, at the end of the day, if I don't have that 5 minutes that I can't spare, I've planned my day wrong, right? I don't need every minute of every day to be stressed. I think that's the point I'm at right now too, is there's enough things going on that are stressful that I need to try and figure out how to process. That creating my own stress is just, why bother, right? And so try and take that approach as well, right? If you find yourself in a moment of judgment, just ask yourself, or if you're feeling judged, just ask yourself what's really going on here. And, and then try and figure out where it fits in the stress level of your day and does it matter or not, right? And try and compartmentalize it, right? People are going to judge you every single time you leave the house or you say something. So the only way that you can avoid it in certain situations is don't put yourself there, which is stay offline. If you don't want to be judged, stay off the internet, right? In the real world, if you are judged, learn really quickly. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. People are going to judge. People are going to have their opinion. People are going to be pissed that you don't conform to what they think. Who cares? And just move on with your day and you'll be much happier.
Yeah. Yep. That's good. I think it comes back to knowing your values,
Yes.
what kind of parent you want to be, what kind of kids you want to have. If you've got that guiding value, I think that was our very first episode.
Mhm.
If you've got that guiding light of the kind of family you want to raise, that's what's going to help you make your decision.
Absolutely. And if that doesn't align to someone else, cool. That's the other thing, right? In today's world, everybody thinks that everybody needs to have the same opinion with them, or else they have to fight, right? And that's not the case. Like you and I were talking about, or was it you and I talking? Yeah, on the way back yesterday, we had a brief conversation around people don't need to be the exact same,
Mm,
right? I have friends that differ wildly in their worldview than what I do, but at a core, I still feel that we share enough similarities or core values that I'm okay with those variances. There have been friends that I feel that has shifted over the years, and I don't associate with them anymore. And not out of a spiteful way or a hateful way. It's just, yeah, that's not me anymore, right? So I wish you the best. If we see each other, great to catch up, but we're not going to be that person, that group anymore. You don't have to be exactly like the people around you, nor should you be, right? It's the same thing. It's the same as the cliche of, you need to be, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
yeah.
If you're in a room with everybody that thinks and acts like you're in the wrong room, right? Because get out. That's how you get this divisiveness. That's how you get these people and it's getting worse and worse, but that's how you find yourself in the situation where you're constantly feeling put upon and constantly feeling that people are trying to chip away at your way of life, and they're not, right? They're trying to get through their own lives in the best way possible. And yeah, sometimes it's going to be at odds with yours, but at the end of the day, does it matter? Are they on your doorstep trying to throw you out of your house? Then it doesn't matter, right? Move on with your day, and they'll do the same.
Heavy, lots to think about.
Tons.
But yeah, it went in a different direction than I expected. But yeah, that's it. That's all.
Cool.
Thank you.